on this week's episode of In the Suite with Tina Powell.
I think that we are a top destination for the best firms in the space because we are willing to create plans that we feel comfortable and confident executing against. In a world where everybody's trying to get to growth faster without doing the work, we're the people that will do it. We'll get down and dirty.
Hi, this is Tina Powell, host of In the Suite, where I sit down with top women leaders and some of the biggest names in the financial services and the wealth management industry. Together, we'll discover some of their best secrets and top strategies to grow a great business, build a strong brand, and lead teams in the 21st century. I hope you'll enjoy hearing their amazing personal stories of triumph, trepidation, and transformation in hopes of becoming better leaders ourselves. The time for you to lead is now, and you're in the suite. Hey CEOs, CTOs, REAs, and Fintech founders. Before you make another brilliant business decision, listen to this. It's the Don't Do That podcast with Kelly Waltrich, CEO and founder of Intentionally, the go-to growth consultancy and marketing agency for the financial services industry. With every episode, Kelly sits down with some of the biggest names in the industry. Think Eric Clark, Adam Holt, Joel Bruckenstein, Ainsley Simmons, and much, much more to unpack the flops and flat out don'ts that shape their biggest wins. Because learning from mistakes is smart, but learning from someone else's mistakes, that's genius. And so is Kelly's show. I hope that you enjoy this first episode and head on over to don'tdothat.com for show notes, links, and video episodes on YouTube. And please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Your future self will thank you, and so will I.
Welcome to the Don't Do That podcast. I'm Kelly Waltrich, CEO and co-founder of Intentionally. And like me, this show is no fluff and no BS. Just smart advice to help you learn from the best and level up faster. So, what are we not doing today? Let's find out.
This is so exciting, Kelly. I'm so honored to be here and really excited for your podcast. I know that so many people are really interested in digging into your story too.
Thanks so much for doing this for me, Tina. I really appreciate you.
So let's get right into it, Kel. What was the decision to get you here in this industry? Tell us a little bit of what that backstory looked like.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I vaguely remember when I was really young, like trying to sell all my grandmother's things back to her. So I was told that from a very young age, like positioning and sweet talking and selling were in my blood. So I channeled that into a career in marketing, and I landed in financial services by accident, but I feel very lucky to have done that. And I met a mentor very early on in my career that said, there are not enough women in this business. There are not enough smart, strong women in this business. And if you plot an intentional path to where you want to get, there's nothing that can stop you. So that's sort of the start of it. And for the last 20 years, I've been sort of plotting my path through. I tried to learn everything possible in this business. I worked at a broker-dealer. I worked at a wealth management division of a bank. I worked at an RIA. I even sold life insurance and estate planning for a short stint, just so that I could learn everything there was to learn about advisors and investors and the relationship between them.
I think that's really exciting. I think you need to know the entire ecosystem here in the wealth management industry. So that was definitely a move well planned. What about your decision? So here you are, you work at a broker dealer, you sell life insurance, all of these varied experiences. When did you get the idea to start Intentionally?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So my best phase of my career was in Fintech. I had the chance meeting of Edmund Walters in an elevator. He gave me a job on the spot. And so that begun my career as a CMO. He took a flyer on me when I really had no business being in that role, and we crushed it. And that business grew to be one of the fastest growing, largest fintechs in the space, and then sold to Fidelity. And then from there, I had the great fortune of landing with Eric Clark at Orion, another like Cinderella story. It was an amazing business, amazing people, and we skyrocketed the growth of that as well. So in both of those experiences, I built very large teams, very large marketing teams. I had to scale them very quickly as the businesses were growing. And what I realized was there was a gap in terms of the industry and the resources that were available to help me do that. I could not, for the life of me, find people that I could plug in quickly, that could, be resources as we were trying to scale, that could be an extra set of hands when we needed them, and that understood the context of the industry without us having to babysit them through everything. So my wheels were turning, I don't know, for 5 or 6 years. And then finally I pulled the trigger. I thought to myself, like, if there is not a resource in this industry like that, then we need to create it. So fast forward almost 4 years, 4 years this coming March, intentionally has now become that for about 50 firms throughout the space.
Incredible. I have to say that I feel very, very blessed, very fortunate to be here. And you definitely have a superpower when it comes to building teams. Let's spend a minute here and talk about the team. Can you share about, who they are and what we do on a daily basis?
Yeah. You and I had a conversation this morning and I called this team the Avengers. I really do feel that way. We've put together a team of people who are unmatched in this space in terms of what they're capable of from a growth perspective. They've worked at all of the best firms across the industry, whether that be RIAs, whether that be fintechs, service providers, you name it. We've compiled the best people that we could find. And what we try to do here at Intentionally is create a culture where people aren't babysat. They do their jobs. They do them well. They do them better than anybody else. And because of that, they get to do it on their own terms and serve the clients in the ways that they think best to help them grow. And we've created sort of a family here. Like we work hard, but we love hard too. I think you can attest to that. And in a world where everybody's trying to get to growth faster without doing the work, we're the people that will do it. We'll get down and dirty.
Totally. And the other thing that I love is that your own career kind of replicates the career of a lot of the team. We come from amazing backgrounds, and here it's like we're this like amazing collection of experiences and firms and whatnot. Do you think that that's part of what makes Intentionally so unique?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I feel like this team is, like I said, unmatched. It's an elite group of people who are at the very top of the skill sets that they have. And I love every single person here. I really do. Tina, like I have histories with all of the people here. It's personal to me. It's funny. I remember a long time ago, we had a webinar from an HR leader that was not in our business, but was connected to our business. I forget what firm I was at the time, but they talked about how you need a very serious diversity of minds and of abilities and all these things. And, it's better to not call your business a family, and it's better to not be so ingrained in each other's lives. And I subscribe to none of that. I believe that all of that corporate HR stuff is BS. And I try to build a team that would want to have drinks together on the weekend, that cares about each other's families, that understands what life things people are going through, that is willing to step up and step in when somebody needs it. And so I subscribe to a different HR mindset.
I've been on the recipient's end of that, and I've been on the giving end of that. And I would say that nowhere in my life experience of over 50 plus years have I ever felt what I feel here as part of like the team and how we take care of each other. Let's talk a little bit about taking care of the clients, right? Because I think people get a little bit confused when they hear the word like marketing agency and they see us everywhere, but not everybody is really sure about what we do. So I think it would be really great to spend some time on talking about the people that we help and some of the services that we offer for Intentionally.
Yeah, I think that's such a good question, Tina, and it so needs clarity, right? Because we definitely don't fit the mold of a traditional agency. And I often kind of cringe when we get lumped into that category. From day one, we've called ourselves a consultancy and agency because we're going into businesses like your big name consultants, and we're saying, okay, this is what your growth programs look like today. And this is where you have gaps. And this is where you need to change and shift. And then the beauty of intentionally is we also have an OCMO team that will take those strategies, that will turn them into strategic plans, and then an agency that will execute against them. So it sort of combines the best of all of the big name consultants that you know in this space with the ability to actually execute. And Tina, you know this, you've heard me say this 1,000 times. I think that we are a top destination for the best firms in the space because we are willing to create plans that we feel comfortable and confident executing against. It's so easy for a consultant to hand over a plan and say, hey, this is what your business needs to do to be successful. And it's so easy for an agency to say, here's some beautiful stuff I created for you. It is much harder to say, here's the plan, here's the things you need to be successful. And oh, by the way, we're going to execute that for you. We're going to track towards progress and goals, and we're going to get to where you're trying to get alongside you.
So if there's a couple of things that I've learned from you, Kel, I would say it's your obsession with how marketing impacts revenue, right? And you're kind of leading into that. And we were talking a little bit about the team. You know, one of the things that I look at you and I'm really impressed by, and our entire team, right? It's not just you, but it's a collection of us. We're not afraid to challenge. Because when you're building a growth portfolio, chances are that there might be things that the company's already doing that maybe we would pivot just a little bit or do a little bit differently. You want to talk about that kind of that consultancy aspect, that growth challenge, that, you know, occasionally there's a arm wrestle here in a really nice way, right? I would say it's delivered from a position of service and impact more than anything else.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a double-edged sword, right? Because we go into relationships wanting to move the needle. And so if a client comes to us and says, hey, I want 3 blog posts a month. Lauren Sanders and I were actually just talking about this. Hey, I want 3 blog posts a month. The easy thing to do would be write 3 blog posts and give them to the client. But we don't think like that, right? Like we think like, why do I need 3 blog posts? What are you doing with those blog posts? Where are you putting them? What are they connected to? How are you driving people to them? How is that ultimately serving your larger strategy? So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. If we took every client that said, hey, we need some social posts and some blog content, then we wouldn't be who we are, because we try to think about what do you actually need to get to your goals. And listen, Tina, like you know me so well, and my desire to constantly be making the connection to revenue is simple. Marketers get a bad rap, right? They turn over faster than any other C-suite position. CEOs have no idea what to do with or how to measure their CMOs. Marketing teams are giving less and less resources. They're the first team on the chopping block every time there's an economic downturn. And that is absurd to me. I feel like when you're making those types of decisions, you are essentially cutting your best opportunity for growth off at the knees. So it's sort of my lifelong mission to elevate marketing within organizations, especially make sure that the CMOs have a seat at the table and position them to show how their impact is actually the greatest amongst the C-suite in terms of a firm's growth trajectory. And so that's what we try to do with all of our clients. And intentionally, we pay special attention to the CMOs who understand that, believe that, want that, and we try to be their wingman.
Yeah, I've even seen us empower that process, even for board meetings, putting together board decks, delivering, data. I really like how intentionally is a data-driven technology organization. So you've got this amazing group of people, but at the same time, we're really utilizing a lot of the tools that we see in the wealth management industry. You even built, I have to just, preface this, which really incredible that as a marketing agency, you're also too a Fintech founder, and that intentionally came out with Advisor Brand Builder. as part of that kind of solution set and really looking at what the industry needed. Let's spend a little bit time here in talking about, it made a lot of noise. We were shortlisted for some awards, and I think it speaks to your skill set that, you're not only looking for the path to revenue, but then there might be some sort of tertiary product feature offering in order to get there.
Yeah. So listen, at the end of the day, there are a lot of great turnkey marketing tools in our space. You think about the Snappy Krakens, you think about the FMGs, there's a whole FMEX, there's a whole host of very scalable turnkey solutions in our space. Intentionally is not that. Intentionally is custom. Intentionally is highly strategic and very untemplated. But we did find a gap in terms of the way advisory firms were thinking about their growth. They weren't placing enough emphasis on their brands. And at the end of the day, everything you do comes back to your brand. You can do lead generation all day. If your brand foundation is not strong, you will not get to your goals. So we realized that this gap existed, and the level of effort, energy, and resources that firms wanted to put into it wasn't what our firm needed it to be able to go in and do massive custom work with these firms. So we created a workflow that takes firms through a branding process that we've tested over years and years and years of putting together advisory firm brands. And we've boiled it down to something that's quick and simple and easy, and that gets firms to a beautiful outcome that they otherwise would have put on the back burner. And what we're trying to do, Tina, is really help firms realize that the brand needs to come first. It needs to be a really important component of a growth strategy at an RIA or otherwise.
Yeah, I would say that from our vantage point, it really, and I come from the RIA industry and you come from the fintech side of the equation. And I would say that for some firms, especially advisors who are looking to start their own RIA, we see a lot of mergers and acquisitions, and I know that through Advisor Brand Builder, it enables like larger enterprises to give the flexibility and the durability and the customized feature to create these brands, because I think a brand is everything that people believe you to be true, especially when you're not in the room. So it's so much more. I love how, we're doing that. I love the transformative effect that's created from Advisor Brand Builder. It's almost like, this old house when they're like, move that bus.
Yes.
And, and then you've got this entire brand. And I know that anybody that's curious, you can see that in action, and we're happy to walk firms through it.
Yeah, Tina, and just to your point about my fintech background, and Randy Lambert is here. He was the COO of Orion, and Kyle was the head of sales at Orion. Like our mindset is, if technology can enable a better process, we're going to figure that out. We're not afraid of all of the technology. You are case A in terms of the use of AI, but we are a team and a firm that is very bullish on anything that is going to make us better, faster, and more streamlined. So we don't see those things as threats. We see them as enablers for us to do the harder work, to do the more strategic work, to dig in other areas where technology can't. So I think you'll see that as a theme from Intentionally for years to come in terms of what we're delivering to the market. I believe there will be more technology in our future.
Let's take a moment to talk about growth. If you're in financial services and wondering how to move the needle on metrics that truly matter, pipeline, revenue, profitability, you need a partner who gets it. And Intentionally, we're just not any marketing agency. We are the go-to growth consultancy for fintechs, large RIAs, custodians, broker-dealers, and asset managers. Our team of cross-functional growth specialists works seamlessly across your firm to accelerate results. Ready to get intentional? Visit intention.ly/contact us to schedule your strategy call and start transforming your growth engine today. Now, back to the conversation. Speaking of gaps and, trying to fill the void in the industry. Here we are, Kel, and it's a beautiful December day. We're getting ready to launch this podcast. I think even the genesis of your idea was something that was looking to fill a gap. For everyone listening, and we thank you so much for the courtesy of your time and attention. I promise you that Kelly's podcast is different. You had a unique angle. And I remember you first telling me about it. I mean, this has been in your guts for years.
Yeah. And thank God for Tina, who pushes me to get these things done. I don't know what I would do without you. And just so you all know, listening, Tina and I are both under heated blankets right now because it is below zero outside. But that aside, Don't Do That is simple. It's based on the idea that we learn better from our mistakes and from our successes. Like, I think that that's a tried and true fact across most successful people. And, I told Tina a story that I'll just repeat to all of you. I used to help Eric Clark with all of his podcast appearances, right? And before all of them, the host would inevitably talk to me about some vulnerability that they wanted Eric to talk about. They wanted to know mistakes he made. They wanted to know things he wished he did differently. They wanted the dirt in terms of like, you had to have messed something up to get here. And Eric, in his true professionalism and his PR training, would always flip the switch, turn that question into a question he wanted to answer instead, and be zero vulnerable on the webinars. And I would sort of laugh to the host afterwards and say, I told you so. But it made me realize that there's very much a want and a need for people to hear that successful people aren't magic, that they're human, that they step in it sometimes, that they make mistakes, and that those mistakes are actually sort of the genesis of the greatness. So that's my goal here, Tina. Like, I want great people in our industry to tell us stories they've never told, to say, you know what? I wish I didn't sell to that PE firm because this is what it did to my employees. Or, you know what? I did not invest in the right things early on, and my business almost did not turn out to what it is today. Or I hired the wrong person, and this role is ridiculous to hire at this stage of there's 1,000,001 things, but I want to hear it. And so the only podcasts for Don't Do That we're going to air are the ones where people get real and they share things that are going to be valuable to the lives and the careers of the people listening. And we'll archive the ones who are unwilling to sort of get down and dirty with us.
And I know that we've got a working list in the background here of our dream list of leaders, but you hit upon something really important, and that is this whole aspect of vulnerability. Can you give us a little bit of an inkling, go a little bit deeper on the types of guests that you're going to interview? It sounds like would it be fair to assume that most are like founders and CEOs? Are they coming from a mix of fintech and from, the broker dealer world? How are you like selecting these amazing individuals to share their stories?
Yeah, Tina, you might regret asking me that question after I say this, but I tell our team internally that I always wish that this industry had a fact checker, right? Like something that was showing on the screen behind people sitting at events or at awards. I would love a fact checker at awards because I feel like this industry has so many opportunities for people who are not walking the walk to shine, people who are not winning inside their businesses, people who are not serving clients well, people who are not growing, talking about growth. And so my one goal in sourcing folks who are going to be on the Don't Do That podcast is to find people that you look up to and to be very clear when we get on the podcast with that person as to why. Because they have grown their business 20% year over year for the last 10 years, because they hired the most elite team of executives and they turned a business around in a 2-year time period. I don't know what it is, but you understand my goal is that if there was a fact checker behind the people on this podcast, that it would be flashing that, yes, this is somebody that you want to be listening to because they have done what you are trying to do.
That's really exciting. And it's one of, I think, the keys to personal growth as well, is to study people who have done it before. And I've seen the list. I'm really excited about these conversations. Let's just spend a few minutes here on growth, being that it is the top of the year. Obviously this is a podcast, so we're really bullish here. We eat our own cooking. We are bullish on podcasts. We are bullish on video. What are the key marketing trends that, as people are listening to this podcast, hearing right now, like, what do you think brands need to embrace, whether or not that's a mindset or a technique or a strategy for success in 2025?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, you need to know where you are. Tina and I talk a lot about sort of this continuum of marketing sophistication. You are either at ground zero, just trying to figure out who you are, or you are at the highest level of sophistication where you have a predictable program in place where you know how, if you put this amount in, you're going to yield this amount out, or you're somewhere in the middle. And so I think just understanding and being real with yourself about where you sit on that continuum and what you need to do to progress forward is really important heading into the new year. In terms of trends that I'm watching, I obviously am loving all things AI. We're trying to figure out not just the basics around like, let's write better copy, but like, how are we really going to use this to propel marketing forward meaningfully? So our team is doing a lot of work and a lot of exploration on what that could look like, not just from a service perspective, but from a technology perspective. I am very bullish on personalization heading into the new year. I think that the old ways of doing things in mass are out, and we've got to get back to the basics and make sure that we have ways to provide very personal experiences to everyone we're reaching out to. And then I would say I am exploring the marketing funnel in ways that I haven't in the past. I feel like we went through a phase where everybody tuned into HubSpot. I am a HubSpot lover, so I am one of those people. And it was a funnel. It was very black and white. It was, this is how people move through a buying process, and this is how you need to communicate with them through this process, and this is how the touches that you need to make, and at what points. And I believe that we're in a moment in time where that's completely flipped on its head, and the funnel needs to be completely reimagined to better align to how consumers are interacting with brands. So I think that each individual firm, if you're listening to this, needs to think about what are the ways in which and the touch points through which firm or prospective clients are interacting with your business and your brand to customize that funnel in ways maybe you haven't in the past.
Yeah, I've heard you on a lot of calls, Kel, and asking some really pinpointed questions to leaders. And I would say that one of the benefits of hearing you and of working with you is to really sit down, to have someone ask you the questions that maybe, your internal leadership team is just, their view is, maybe not so focused on things. And there might even be a cultural component why you wouldn't want to bring up those hard questions during a meeting in fear that it might make look somebody bad or things like that. I think really the outside looking in is, a philosophy that we do hear that, hey, if you can't utilize a company or the brain trust here and intentionally to sit down and just have a wonderful conversation with just from a consulting basis. I know that, even just spending an hour with you, Cal, is I see how business owners come into this office, and whether or not that's an in-person meeting here at our Intentionally Studio / headquarters right outside of Philly, where they fly in and they fly out. We have one happening tomorrow and the next day. But also too, I love this, this aspect of, holding people accountable, including ourselves. I think that's also too, as I'm hearing you speak, like accountability needs to be a trend as well. Who are sometimes that accountability, as we see people kind of passing the buck, a good marketing agency will be absolutely accountable for those results.
Yeah, Tina, you're so right. I think that we are at a point, and you and I talk about this a lot, about the type of client that we want are willing to take on it intentionally is much different than it was 4 years ago. And I think of it a little bit like Shark Tank. Like you need to come in and you need to be able to tell us, what are your growth goals? If you don't have any, don't come to us. I'm just going to be real with you. If you don't know what you're working towards, then how do we know what we're working towards? That's absurd. So what are your growth goals? What are you willing, time, money, resources to allocate to get to those growth goals? And what does it look like internally so that we can make sure that we set up externally to complement that in the best way possible? So I think of it a little bit like Shark Tank. Like I get on my prospect calls and I listen and I'm as kind as can be, but in the back of my mind, I am saying, do they know what they need? And are they willing to put the correct amount of resources towards getting there so that we can all jointly be successful?
So before I ask you the quintessential don't do that question here on that podcast, I think it would be really interesting for people to know something about you that might kind of surprise them, Cal. I don't know if you're willing to kind of share if there's one thing that most people don't know about you. There was a lot that I discovered, I have to admit. Now, you and I have been working together now. We've known each other for years, probably a decade. But getting to be here every day and seeing you, it's really been fascinating. So what is the one thing that most people would be surprised to learn about you?
Oh my gosh, Tina, I don't know. But if you want Tina's and my backstory of coming together, that's an interesting one too. And it's all over social media. So it's easily found if you're looking for it. Okay. What would people be interested to know about me? I feel like I'm in my mom era. I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and it has completely reprioritized my life and my mindset. And I think all the best ways in the way that I care for our team, in the way that I think about our client relationships, the expectations that I have for our clients and our team as well. And so I think that that's what defines me right now is I'm definitely in my mom era. And then the other thing that I've talked about only a few times in my career, but something that I want this audience to know because it's important to the context of this show, is that I am somebody with a do not list. I am somebody who has held close to my heart my whole entire career a list of non-negotiables and boundaries. And I think it has served me really well. And when I left eMoney, everybody looked at me and said, "You are crazy. That is a rocket ship and you are in the best job in this space." And the same thing when I left Orion and the same thing when I started Intentionally. But I have in my phone for the last 15 years, if not longer, a list of non-negotiables, a list of boundaries, and my do not list. That was sort of the genesis for this podcast. Things that will cause me to move on, that will cause me to take my next step, will cause me to not hire somebody, will cause me not to take a job, all those types of things. And I feel like, if I can give something back to those of you who are listening that are younger in your careers and are trying to figure it out, like setting some boundaries for yourself is the best thing you will ever do. And even when it's hard and you have to tell your husband, "Hey, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I'm going to figure it out," I think you'll look back on those moments and be really glad you did.
So Kelly Waltrich, what is the one thing we're not doing today?
Oh my gosh, Tina, what we are not doing today is going into 2025 unprepared. We are not going to expect growth to happen on its own. We're not going to hope that it happens through osmosis. We're not going to hope that our team figures it out. We're not going to hope that magically all the things that happened this year are not going to happen again next year with no change. Our clients are not going into 2025 without a well thought out plan for how they are going to get to their goals. And how Intentionally is going to help them get there.
I love it. Kel, this has been an incredible conversation. So much more to come here. I really feel very honored and privileged to not only be here on the pod with you on your first episode, but really to work alongside you as well as this phenomenal team. I learn something every day that I'm here. And so congratulations. I know that you're probably one of the hardest working women that I've ever seen, and mother and wife and business owner. So thank you very much for starting this podcast. I know that it's, adding additional labor, but these conversations are something that the industry really needs. And I love your unique approach to it. So thank you so much for all that you do.
And I love you.
Love you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. You're listening to In the Suite, the podcast that shares amazing stories of women leading the way in financial services and wealth management, and the men who champion and empower them. Our producers are Tina Powell and Kevin Hirshhorn. Our editor at large is Kevin Hirshhorn. Our content writer is Tina Powell. This podcast is sponsored by Intentionally, a growth design consultancy working with Fintech and FinServe companies to turbocharge their marketing efforts. If you want more information, please email me at tina@growintentionally.com. And thank you so much for listening and subscribing. It truly means the world to me. We've got listeners in over 82 countries and 1,680 cities worldwide. We're approaching our 100th episode. So please, I hope that you would consider giving us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. It would mean the world and help us to get found by more people. And please, I would love to connect on LinkedIn and follow In the Suite Pod on Instagram. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing.